And welcome to episode 9 of the N1 with EJ podcast. I'm your host, Ernest EJ Christian, coming to you from the palatial Christian estates. No, not really palatial, but you know what I mean. I'm just trying to be funny, of course, man. Guys, it's Tuesday. I'm tired, man. Long day. I didn't get any sleep. I had to take my kid to the doctor today because apparently he's had a stomach bug. So I came home from school. I basically kept both kids home from school today. So then how much, had to be, dad duties today and on 3 hours of sleep. It's not fun. It cut my day a little bit, but hey, look, kids come first, man. You gotta take care of what's necessary and the priorities. My priority is my family first before anything else. Anyway, on today's podcast, as always, we do 5 takes, 5 observations, 5 thoughts, 5 whatever you want to call it, as we look into the National Basketball Association. And we're getting close to playoff time, guys. We're only a month and a half away. Not even 5 weeks, I think, if you do the math right now. I tweeted last night on Twitter. I'm so excited about the playoffs. Can't wait for the start. And all these matchups every night. The NBA season it's been a very fun year, wide open year, and still got more things to talk about. A lot of storylines still very intriguing to bite off. A lot of meat on the bone. As you get closer to mid-April and my favorite time of year, I always tell folks, the NBA playoffs is like Christmas to me, man. It's always a fun time. It's always it's my favorite time of year, man. I love the NFL obviously too, but NBA basketball is still my number one. So let's get to it right now. Let's get to the couple of takes here. I want to start on a serious note here because this story is now turned much more serious in recent weeks, and I'm very concerned. I am rooting for this guy to do well. I'm rooting for this guy to do big things, and I'm a big fan of this guy. But little by little, you're seeing a little bit of a bad pattern here, and we want to nip it in the bud now. But we got to talk about it, man. We got to talk about John Morant. Very concerned now. The latest thing now, of course, is an investigation. He was on the IG, on Instagram Live, and he was at a strip club brandishing a gun on video. He since took two games away from the team. That's now turned to an indefinite leave. I don't know. I think that's either a team decision or his decision. I know the two games away, I believe, was his decision, of course. But like I said, we're seeing a bad pattern here now with John Morant, and it looks like I'm rooting for the guy. Again, the company that you keep ultimately, is going to reflect a lot on how you make decisions. And I'm not sitting here dogging his boys, man, but you hear these little stories, and whether they're true or not true, it feels like a smoke is fire situation. And I don't want to sit and double down on, because I'm sure he's heard all the pleas from people in media. By the way, Jalen Rose' thoughts on this on Saturday NBA Countdown was fantastic. Couldn't say any better. I wish I could put the audio here, actually, to be honest with you. But his thoughts on it obviously was fantastic, and and a lot of people's thoughts is so he knows. He already. I'm assuming he knows anyway. I'm praying his dad, T. Morant. I know T. Morant is very much involved in his son's life. They're obviously neighbors and they're best friends. But remember, T, you're his father first, and if you're seeing these things happening, you need to step in and make sure that he's on the up and up, because look, he's gonna fuck up his money. That's the bottom line, and I hate to cuss him on that, but let's be real. He's about to mess up his money, and he's John Morant is going to probably make hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars in the years to come. He's 23 years old. He's the face of the Memphis Grizzlies. His team's a contender now. Endorsements, he's well liked. But these things here, you have to be very careful. Again, this is kind of like a strike too. Not saying his career is over, but you start seeing a pattern here. Teams are going to be less resistant to trust you. Okay, they don't have to pay you money. All it takes is one bad incident to go awry, and you're done. You see the stories. You see the horror stories. So John Morant, please, I beg of you to turn things around, please. And I'm begging his father to get involved. And look, even the boys out with him, like if you know better, step in there. There's no need for to to act all hard and thuggish. You don't need that, man. Be a cornball like me, and be a cornball like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a cornball, and yeah, he's filthy rich. Hopefully turns things around next year in the NFL, and if so, Hall of Famer. And he also smashes Ciara. He also is married to Ciara. So there you go. John Morant. There's nothing good that comes out of acting hard and trying to get that lifestyle. There's nothing good about it at all. I don't see why you need to lean on that. You're not a sellout. You're doing the right thing. You have a daughter. You have kids also. You have a kid also too. On top of that, so move forward and correct this, man. Seriously. All right. Next thing on this. I was watching First Take today, and I actually love this topic. I stole this topic from First Take, and it was a topic between. It was debated between there was Stephen A. Smith, J.J. Redick, of course, Kendrick Perkins, and they were talking about which team has more at stake moving forward, the 76ers or the Celtics. Now, obviously, the Celtics are in a bit of a struggle now. I'm a little worried about this team moving forward because, the last couple of weeks have been kind of a little up and down, a little volatile, a little reverse of last year. Remember, last year started slow and they ended the year hot. This year, a little bit reverse. They started the year hot and they ended the year a little more in a little bit in the mud. Look, I think this team's still a title contender. I'll give them that. So this team, obviously, you look at Jason Tatum, you look at Jaylen Brown, arguably the best 1-2 tandem in the league. Certainly in terms of scoring, they're fantastic. But there's a lot of things about Tatum. I'm still on the fence with. He's a top 10 player. Jaylen Brown, top 20 player in the league, maybe 15. Yes, there's worries about the Celtics now. There's still a little bit of worries. But I'm going to still tell you the team has more at stake here between the two is the 76ers. Let me tell you why. Because they're year to year at this point. Like, obviously, I said before in the past that the team's in a 2-year window when they re-signed Harden to that short deal, which is a good deal. It was a 1-on-1, obviously. He can. Dave Troy could opt out this year. There's already rumors circling that he may want to go back to Houston again. I don't know why he'd do that. If the idea is to win titles, then why would you want to go back to Houston? Why would you stay in Philadelphia and win it with Embiid and company? Doc Rivers obviously too. I've been one of the biggest critics of Doc Rivers. I'm not saying I'm not a fan of his, but I've never seen a guy that's live off one title that happened 15 years ago, and is still considered a top coach. You've seen some of the worst meltdowns in NBA history under his watch. And to me, he may not be the coach much longer, which could be a good thing actually for the Sixers. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad fit for the Sixers, but a lot of folks I talk to, not a big fan of his either. And then, of course, Joel Embiid. And look, to Joel Embiid's credit, he's been very healthy. He's been very healthy the last couple of years. Not very healthy. I mean, that's in comparison to his earlier career. He's maintained health. He's maintained played more games than he's not. But there's a lot more volatility in Philadelphia than there's in Boston. At least with Boston, even if they make the finals or miss the finals this year, you still feel confident at least in the next year or two with that core of Tatum and Brown that they're at least a Eastern Conference Finals contender, or NBA Finals contender, obviously NBA Finals contender as well too. With Philadelphia, it can open up in a second. With Embiid's health, I'm not wishing that obviously because I love Joel Embiid, one of my favorite players in the league. But you have the Embiid injuries, you have James Harden's possibility of leaving the team, and you have Doc Rivers and where he goes. And so the Sixers to me have more at stake because their window is pretty much year to year, and it's year to year for the next 2 years. And it's assuming that Harden comes back next year, assuming you want him back, and assuming Doc Rivers comes back, and assuming you want him back as well too. So I will say there's more volatility when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers and Buddy Love than it is in Boston. At least in Boston, you have an idea that Tatum and Brown is your future for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. At least you know that, and that's at least in that case, that's is why Philadelphia tips the scale as a team with more at stake right now as we get closer to the NBA playoffs. All right, my third take of this show today, the New York Knicks. They're a fun story. They are a fun story. I spoke about them on the podcast last week. They have won, I believe, 9 in a row. They haven't lost a game since the All-Star break. Hottest team in the league right now currently. Great story. Jalen Brunson, obviously, value contract. People thought it was a bad deal for the Knicks, and he is so far overplayed. He's played that value. He's played on top of the value of that deal. Julius Randle's having a great year. I played every game this year. He saw quickly against Boston on Sunday. But let's keep it real, Knicks fans. I know, Knicks tape, bing bong, the whole nine. I get that. But let's get real, Knicks fan. I'm going to warn you because you did this. Y'all did this crap 2 years ago. We're back. This and that. I warned my buddy Corey Vasquez. It was been on my podcast before in the past. He's a big Knicks fan. And I told him, I warned him. Listen, it's a fun story, and but also measure your expectations too. This team is still the one and done team in the playoffs. Once it's done. Because there's no way in hell to beat Milwaukee in the 7-game series. There's no way in hell to beat Boston. I know they beat Boston twice in last week. 7-game series with adjustments, Boston will come to play. I don't think they're better than Philadelphia either. They have no answer in Embiid in the middle. Okay. Cleveland's the only team in the four at the top four. I can see maybe New York pushing back, and even then, if you ask me right now, gun to my head, who wins that series? I say Cavs in 7, maybe Cavs in 6. But much better talent, top tier talent. Much larger ceiling. But the next future is bright. It's a bright future. All I'm saying is to measure the expectations. Measure it. Because you don't want to get let down like you were last 2 years ago when you guys thought you guys were ready to go and do all this and you had home court advantage against the Hawks in the first round, and then Trae Young stole your lunch money. I'm just trying to be a good friend and to step in there and let you guys know, slow down. You're a good team, playoff team, excited. It's great to see New York basketball on the map again. I'll tell you a little bit of story behind that. I'm a New Yorker. I'm born in New York, born in Brooklyn. Was never a Knicks fan, but in those years, I was a big Patrick Ewing fan. And in those years, when the Heat were not a playoff contender necessarily, they made the playoffs like twice in the first 6 years in the league. In those years, when the Knicks were going to the conference finals, NBA finals, I rooted for them because I hated the Bulls. I hated Michael Jordan, the Bulls. Now Jordan's great all the time. I'm not arguing that, but I hated the Bulls. So therefore, I rooted for the Knicks to win those Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals against Houston and all that. That's for Ewing. And then once the Heat-Knicks rivalry got launched in the late '90s, and then added with the fact that the way the Knicks treated Patrick Ewing when he got traded and booted out of New York unceremoniously. It left a bad taste in my mouth. And I've had kind of a disdain, not a hatred for the Knicks, but I had a little bit of a disdain for the Knicks and the franchise. And I can't stand James Dolan. Let's be real. James Dolan's a piece of shit. Let's be real. The owner. But, that being said, I got a little soft spot for the Knicks to some degree. I got a little soft spot for the Knicks. And, they've been bad long enough. And the league is fun when they're at least relevant. I'm not saying title contender, but at least relevant. Talk about a team that has won an NBA Finals in 50 years. So, good on y'all, but just temper down the expectations. All right, let's get to the fourth take of this N1 EJ podcast. The fourth take on the docket here. The Suns are 3-0 with Kevin Durant in the lineup. I'm not sold, though. I'm not completely sold on them to win the finals yet. I'm not saying they're not going to win it. I'm not saying they can't and all that. I just see... I have concerns still. So that's not... I'm not sitting there trying to, talk shit and say, they have no chance. No, they do. And in fact, they won... Look, they're one of the favorites. You add Kevin Durant to your team, you're in a conversation. But there are concerns. There are a lot of concerns I have with this team still. I look at the team for example, their roster. Like, obviously, Booker and Kevin Durant, obviously, but one of the best one-two punches right now in the league right now, just on paper. DeAndre Ayton, for the most part, has been solid. But the thing I was concerned about, this is why I was saying when the deal happened, that my number one concern about this is what happens when you get a top-tier star, a top 3 guy, top 2 guy, really, in a Durant, that you lose a chunk of your depth. And you're seeing that here. That depth is missed for a little bit with Phoenix. And one of the things with the Suns for the last couple of years that has propelled them to being in the conversation, remember the finals team in the finals 2 years ago and been best team in the West last year, was their depth. They had Chris Paul and Devin Booker, yes, but their depth was the thing that always was the reason why they were always a 61-plus team every year. So their depth now is being shown to be an issue. Could the guys they have on that roster step up? Absolutely. We'll see what happens there. But I got to see it first to believe it. All I'm saying is this: Phoenix Suns is not. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say they're not a contender. Yes, you asked me, are they a final contender? Absolutely. But are they the front runners? Are they the heavy favorites? Hell no. Chris Paul looks old. Chris Paul look a little older. They need to find another guard to firm up some of those minutes behind him. Can Chris Paul hold up? Can he stay healthy? And look, I hate to say, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to say it. What if Durant gets hurt again? That depth now we talk about again. That's a problem. Okay? Without Durant, they're not beating Denver or Memphis with Ja back in the lineup, and I don't think they even beat the Lakers, honestly. When LeBron gets back. So all I'm saying is with the Suns, just be very careful. Let's not anoint this team as the runaway favorites in the Western Conference or to win the finals, for that matter. It was a great acquisition, but it comes with risks. It does. All right, finally, last take of the episode of N1 with EJ. This is, I believe, episode number 9 of this show. This has been a very good ride so far. And last week we did the show. We were concerned about the Lakers because LeBron James gets hurt. He's going to be out a couple weeks. Who knows the rest of the year? Who knows? And I said probably they could be done. Well, the Lakers have held on pretty well in the last last week or so. Anthony Davis, obviously he's healthy, and when he's healthy, it makes a big difference. The Lakers are hanging around. The Lakers are right now in the Western Conference as we record this podcast. They're still 11. They're still number 11 in the West, but they are right now tied in a 3-way tie for a 9th spot with Utah and Portland. I don't expect Portland and Utah to maintain. We'll see. Dame Lillard, Utah's roster, we'll see. Look, I think the Lakers, as long as AD's healthy, they'll crack the play-in. Right now, they are 2.5 back right now. I'm reading this now. 2.5 back for the 6th seed behind Minnesota. Okay? And Minnesota's starting to play much better basketball now. Now, granted, do we know where when Karl Anthony Towns come back? We'll see. For the stretch run, we'll see. I still think it's hard to see this team leapfrog 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams just to get to the 6th seed. The Clippers now fall into the play-in situation now too. Also, at some point they'll figure it out. Maybe Dallas in the 17 now. So I don't know if I see the Lakers leapfrogging the Clippers and the Mavericks. First off, I don't. But again, I've been wrong before. But I do think the Lakers are a play-in team. Their goal should be getting to the 7-8 spot, so they have the 2 cracks at the playoffs. They're supposed to get into a 9-10 spot where they lose the first game, they're done. But I won't come out. In fact, I'd be honest with you, remember, this is the caveat here. As long as AD's healthy, I feel confident they'll be in the at least in the play-in. So there's that for the Lakers and all that. And that's what we'll do for this week's episode of And One with EJ on the Huddle Up podcast feed, Huddle Up Incorporated. Again, I'm your host, Ernest EJ Christian, coming to you on March 7th today? Yeah, March 7th, 2023. So until the next episode, and by the way, guys, I'm getting healthy now too, especially. So I talk about that on my main podcast. Check it out on the Earth Podcast, on any podcast catcher, or on my YouTube page at youtube.com/@Ernest Christian. That's EARNEST. So you guys soon. And enjoy this episode. Enjoy the rest of your day. And see you next week. Later.